Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about reinventing yourself. Oh, isn't this a thinker? And thankfully, we are thinking about this topic today with Lorie, who's going to help us really think about this in a whole new way. So, thank you so much, Lorie, for coming onto my show, sharing your time and your perspective with me. I am so excited about this. So, let's just dive right in. When you hear those words, reinventing yourself. What does that make you think about?
Well, I think most people think about bad times in your life, reinventing yourself after you get fired, reinventing yourself after you get divorced, reinventing yourself after a loved one dies. So there are just so many ways that we reinvent ourselves. But so that's what I think most people think about. But I think that that we all reinvent ourselves many, many, many times, that there are happy reinventions and there are sad reinventions. So, for instance, when you graduate from college, you've got to, you think you've reached a goal and that you're done, but it's just the beginning. So
Mhm.
there was a Broadway play called Avenue Q, and the opening line is a young man comes out on the stage and he says, "I just got a bachelor's degree in English. What do you do with a bachelor's degree in English?" So that's when you have to start reinventing yourself. So those kinds of reinventions are when you get married, when you buy a house, when you get a new job, all of these times you're reinventing yourself. And of course, the sad ones. The sad ones are harder to deal with. But that's what I think most people think about for reinventing, and I add the others on so that you understand that you've got experience in it. You've done this many times before. And fortunately or unfortunately, you're going to do it many, many more times.
Yes, I love that. Oh, I love the way that you broke that down, Lori. I do because people don't realize that this is a constant thing. We are constantly reinventing ourselves. It's not just in the major moments that impact us, like deaths, natural disasters, you know what I mean? Divorces, getting fired from a job, getting laid off, all those things that are really are impactful where it does make you cross that road like, now what? But we do also do it in all those other happy moments too, like when you have a child and when they're going to school or all those life stages that they accomplish, and even our own life stages accomplishments, my
Yeah.
even little minor ones that we don't even realize, like, oh, now you rearranged a house, that's reinventing it. Feng shuiing it, that's reinventing it. You know what I mean? Changing your style of clothes, that's another way of inventing it. So it really does make us realize that we can live so many different lives in one lifetime. You know what I mean? Like so many different ways we can evolve and adjust and become something more than we could ever think about or even imagine. You know what I mean? And that's what I love about this conversation, and the fact that you have put it in such a big broad and perspective, because now anyone really can take this concept and be like, huh, how have I recently reinvented myself that I haven't given myself that awareness? You know what I mean? Those real hard reflections that people really need to take. So I guess that leads me to my next question. When did you realize that you were hitting a moment where it was time to reinvent yourself?
Well, one of the one that stands out. So I'm 73 years old, and my children at this point are 49, 47, and 44. And so it was empty nest. It was the first time that I felt I had to reinvent myself. And I
Mhm.
was just absolutely distraught. I mean, I had been a full-time mom, but then when I got divorced, I became, employed and all that kind of stuff. Still, I was used to having kids at home. And the silence in the house was deafening and it had weight and it had me pinned to the sofa, which that pin to the sofa happened in other reinventions, such as after my father died. I had been his caregiver after my significant other died. That had been a real rocky road. So that being on the sofa, unable to move the first time was really with empty nest. But you have to tell you, with empty nest, it's interesting to me that even though my oldest child's almost 50, I still feel empty nest syndrome in new ways all the time.
Hmm.
So when the kids got married, we still loved each other, but I bumped down a level. I wasn't quite as important. And when they had children, I was thrilled, new people for me to love, but I was bumped down a little. So I was experiencing empty nest after empty nest. And here my son is almost 50, and he was divorced and he remarried a year ago. So I'm reinventing myself. I'm a different mother-in-law than I was to the first wife, or I know more. But it's yeah. So yeah, empty nest was my first and continuing, a very continuing time that I've reinvented myself.
Yes, I love how you spoke a part about yourself that is so true and so valuable, and so many people can relate to your story, especially for the older generation. Because I have a lot of listeners who are 40 plus and they're going through those changes of divorce, of loss, of death, of empty nesters. You know what I mean? Their children are going off to college and things like that. So it holds value because when you have to be a mother to somebody else, now, you know what I mean, from who you used to be, now you have to change that way. And now when you bring in grandkids, that's a whole different new way of loving. And
Right.
I think that is so interesting because people don't realize that even when you bring people into your family or removing people from your family, that still requires a change in the way that you move through life and the way that you act through life. And I don't think people realize that, you know what I mean? Like you have
Mhm.
to take into consideration for yourself what's really going on. So, I mean, what is the best way that you have learned to really go with the waves of changes?
Well, I'm glad you asked because, okay, so I have a new book that's you can get the ebook already on Amazon, but the hardback, Amazon doesn't know that they have it yet. It hasn't passed through the distributor yet, but it's called High on Life. So I am high on life. And it's 36 slice of life stories. So I have worked as a motivational speaker, and all my work has been motivational for like 30 years. And what I do is I tell the stories of my life, hoping you can glean life lessons from them. So one of the stories is how to reinvent yourself. And um, since oftentimes a reinvention comes when you're bereft, um, it's hard. It's very hard. And so I actually did this with empty nests. So I have my methodology for reinventing yourself has exactly 2 steps because we have to keep it easy. We're going through a bad time. We can't have 15 steps. We can't go there.
Yeah.
So, we want to be on the sofa with the blanket over our head. We don't want to be doing anything. So, my
Hmm.
method is extremely simple. It's 2 steps. The first one is that you have to have a healthy routine. So, for me, this meant that I had to get out of bed every day. And I
Hmm.
had to put on my makeup and I had to get dressed and I had to do my hair, just basic, so I'm going to look good. And for me, because I'm kind of a homebody, I have to go somewhere every day and I have to talk to someone every day. It could be an email, a text message, it could be a phone call, it could be in person. But all of those things are important for my health. So that's my routine. I also exercise and stuff like that, but a healthy routine. So that's something now that's going to have 6 or 7 steps. But whatever you do when you're feeling good, whatever your
Hmm.
routine is when you're feeling good, you really have to aim to do that every single day. So that's step one is to have a healthy routine and to stick with it. And then there's another story in High on Life that talks about the importance of the routine. And then the next step is to take one step, can be teeny tiny step, one step towards your new direction. And I like accountability logs. So I think you should. I went out and I bought a spiral notebook for 79 cents, just like if I was going back to school. And on page one, it's like I put today's date and what my one action was. So my one action when I was going through Empty Nest was just to find something to do, to find daily activities. And I happened to find volunteermatch.org that has all kinds of volunteer work. And I made a call to them or sent an email, whatever. That's one step. That's all you have to do. If you do that one step, you can go back on the sofa, you can take your tissue box, you can eat your bonbons, whatever, but one step. And you find when you're having a good day, because when you're in an emotional state, some days are better than others. When you're having a good day, maybe that'll feel so good that you want to take another step. It's great. In that case, this is a hack for people with ADD, but set a timer for 10 minutes and see how many phone calls or emails you can send out that represent taking a step in the new direction. And so, really with the empty nest thing, it took me like 5 or 6 calls to get all this great volunteer work lined up. I volunteered at for the March of Dimes, stuffing envelopes, but it got me out with people and they expected me to come every Tuesday. So I had to be there every Tuesday. So it's a very easy to have, again, just 2 steps, a healthy routine and one step a day in the direction of your goals. And again, another chapter in High on Life is on that, like one step at a time. It's just amazing.
It is.
You can
Eh.
go one step at a time. Yeah,
Oh,
tiny,
I
tiny.
love that. I love how you were able to set yourself to be accountable, how you knew that you had to keep going, and that you were like, you know what? All I have to do is just two things, bare minimum activities, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're doing. I mean, you know what I mean? Even the basics of getting out of bed, brushing your teeth, getting yourself fixed up, putting on the makeup, putting on your clothes that actually are not Raggedy Ann. You know what I mean? Because I know what you mean. I'm a homebody too. I love being home. Oh, do I love being home? So I know that when my sons get older and I become an empty nester at that point, I know that I'm gonna be doing exactly what you're doing and forcing myself to volunteer and forcing myself to do something to keep going because it can be so discouraging to go out into the life and go out into the world. But in reality, like the world still needs you. It doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. You still have an impact. You can still help in any way, shape, or form. But just taking that one step does so much. And I love also how you said, like, if you do that one step of and you reached your goal and it's already done and it's 10 a.m. and I was like, now what? That can be either a motivator for you to keep on going. You know what I mean? Like I said that with working out. Like you can, if you don't ever work out and you only give yourself 5 minutes to work out, do those 5 minutes and then watch. You're going to be enticed to do another 5 minutes if you have the time. You know what I mean? And that'll eventually grow. So this is like the same concept. Like if you only have 5 minutes to just call a friend that you haven't talked to in a while, call that person. You know what I mean? Even if they don't pick up, then hey, leave a message or nobody leaves voice messages anymore, but it's still something that's worth listening to when you have the time. So it's just like I think one thing that a lot of people do is they discredit their value into this earth. You know what I mean? So it's just like how do you still provide yourself that value that everyone really needs?
I agree with everything you've said. But let's go and talk about that friend you're going to call because when you're really on the sofa with the silence in the room pinning you to the sofa and your tissue box, you really don't feel like you have any friends. So
Yeah.
I think an interesting thing to do with your accountability log is turn to a back page and make a list. I get grief about this from people all the time. They think it's so funny. These people are my friends because you really, when you're low, You don't think you have any. And the reality
Yeah.
is you have lots of friends. And again, another chapter in High on Life is how to be rich and friends. And the realization is that not every friend is a dear friend. There's a friend that you can have coffee with, but you wouldn't tell her your secrets because she's a blabbermouth or whatever. But still, she's fun to have coffee with. And then there's the deepest friends. And then there's just who you know when you go to, I don't know what, when you bump into it at the grocery store. There's all kinds of friends. And to me, it's always been very helpful to have a list. These people are my friends. It really works for me.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna tell my mom that because my mom feels that she has no friends and her children don't like her. And I'm just like, we like you, we love you, you're our mother. But you do have friends, but you just don't talk to them, or you know what I mean? You don't acknowledge them, or you've been too busy, but doesn't mean that if you find them that they won't welcome you back into their lives. I mean, I think that's the misconception when it comes to friendships is that if you don't have that everyday communication, then you don't have friends. But in reality, like I can somebody can call me and we haven't spoken for years and I will be like, "Oh, how are you? How I miss you." I mean, I know things are so
Sure.
good. You know what I mean? It's like time doesn't really hold value unless you put that in between the friendship. You know what I mean? If you make
Yeah.
that the obstacle of reason why we can't be friends, well then that's your choice. But I don't think that time is a negative reason to push people away because like you said you can find a friend to just oh they like to talk so I like to listen, we can go out to eat or we can have coffee and I can just listen to you and I can be your friend and you know that you always have a listening ear or and you know what I mean and vice versa you can find that somebody who can be that listening ear. It's just finding the right people, you know what I mean, and just knowing that it's okay to do certain things with certain people but not with others, you know what I mean, because
Sure.
you're not gonna party and with other people but you're gonna eat lunch with other or cook with other people, you know what I mean. It's
Right.
just we have to be very realistic when it comes to that. So I guess my question is, do you think life should be easy?
Oh my God, life is not easy. It should be. It'd be nice if it was, but no, it's not easy at all. But but what? But it's wonderful. So, so gratitude answers into that. And well, I'm gonna come back to your mom and say maybe she's feeling a little bit of empty nest as you're busy with your children, which is exactly as it should be, is exactly how she wants it to be, but she still, suffers from that. But and then like an organization has paper members and it has board members and it has people who come to one event or another. That's the kind of thing you're looking for in friendship. And then I lost the thread. So go back to your question. Ask me one more time.
No worries. So my question was, do you think life should be easy? So you kind of answered that by saying no, it's not easy,
It's not
but
easy.
it kind of should. But I think at the same time, when it's not easy, I feel like that's when you learn the most. You know what I mean? That's when you learn the most about yourself and about other people and about all these opportunities that are in front of you. So I guess my next question is, um, when somebody doesn't is unsure or they have doubt when it's time to reinvent themselves, what would you tell somebody who's dealing with doubt?
Well, it is nice if besides your accountability log, if you can get an accountability partner, so someone who just gives you, some valid feedback. But again, I think you just have to start, that they will um and be grateful for every little step that you take. I don't know. It just one thing leads to another, leads to another.
Yeah.
So you have to find a cheerleader. And I was tickled to see on your website that you have quotes of the every month, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And in my book, every of the short stories ends with a quote that sums
Oh,
things
I love
up.
that.
And then the back of the book is the whole book in short form, so in case you don't have time to read, so it's just all the quotes. So it's all of those rah rah, you can do it quotes. And
Yeah.
as what boring as they are, whatever, they're so true. they're just so true. And so you can easily Google online, motivational quotes, or, you can say, I'm feeling really crummy today. Is there a quote that'll help me feel better? I mean, really, you put that in there and search engines will come up with all kinds of things. So yeah, so besides being the motivational person, I've also said that I am a cheerleader with the message, going back to your question, that life is difficult, but you can do it. And let me tell you about a really difficult time in life, which is divorce, which I've gone through. Many people have, and that really I'll have you pinned to the sofa. There's a really terrific book that I read at the time called The Good Divorce, and it said,
I know that lady. I know the lady who wrote that book.
that's a great book.
It
Yes. And
is.
she tells you that there are, I think, 5 different relationships you can have with your ex-spouse. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's 1,000 steps between each of these degrees, one step a day in the direction of being perfect pals, I think is her fire. You go from fiery foes maybe to perfect pals, something like that. One
Yes.
step a day. So again, if you can find an accountability partner who can give you a pep talk or Google it or whatever. But that could be your one thing a day that you do is to make a list of 10 quotes to live by. And
Yeah.
with Google, it's really so easy to find that kind of thing. And when I'll do quotes about success, for instance, and if you tell them you want it all in images, it'll be really pithy little whatever, quotes with illustration, which is great.
Yes,
I
yes.
like that.
I love that too. And I actually had her on my website, I mean on my podcast to talk about the good divorce.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was such a great conversation. She had such great insight and her
Yeah.
story really does hold value. And I love the fact that she wrote it in a book so that shares other people like yourself to
Right.
motivate them, let them realize like this is possible. Like you can have a good divorce. Your child can have a good experience from.
Uh-oh, you froze. Mitzi, are you there? Hello? Hello, hello? Oh, Mitzi, you froze. Hello, hello? Oh no, Mitzi, what do we do?
Oh, I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened. You
I
suddenly you weren't moving. You weren't in motion.
Yeah, I don't know. You froze, but I was still talking. Then all of a sudden, it just exited out and then came back on. So I don't know. I'll do the editing, but so I don't know where it edited
I
out.
don't.
I don't
Okay.
know either, but I think that's so weird. But it's okay. We can continue forward. So
So we were,
at the end of the day, I think what you brought into the topic of that doubt that lingers in, that pin you to the sofa moment, the depression, the sadness, the sorrow, the what's gonna happen next. I think that that crossroad that we all encounter really comes together when we have that cheerleader, when we have somebody, that support system, where we have these quotes laid out throughout the house or throughout our environment so that we can stay lifting ourselves up, because sometimes we have to lift ourselves up. And when we're going through things that are just like uncertain, like on like you don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, that's the best way to have that so that you can have that as your firm foundation. Like I may not know what's gonna happen, but at least I know that it's gonna be okay and I'll push through. So yes, I think that's something that people most definitely can value and hold on to. So time is catching up to us. So what can be some lasting words that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
well, so again, each of the stories in High on Life has a quote to sum it up. And so there are 36 stories, but there are actually 39 quotes because when I talked about self-care, I thought it needed 3 quotes. So self-care is so important, especially when you're going through a rough time. So these are the 3 quotes. Self-care is the radical notion that you deserve your own attention.
Ooh,
And the other one is, I love this, you owe yourself the love you so freely give to other people.
yes.
Amazing. And this one, I love this. What if you simply devoted this week to loving yourself?
Ooh.
Aren't those good? Oh, I
Mm.
love quotes. I love good quotes.
Oh, I do too. I am a sucker for quotes. Even when I'm hearing conversations or I'm out and about in the world and I just read something, I write it down in my little notes in my
Yeah.
phone and I'm like, yeah, this is a good one for later. This one's a good one to save. I have like a whole folder, a whole like section full of just quotes, just random quotes, and I slowly gather them up and add them to my website. I have like a notebook full of quotes too. I have like probably like 2 notebooks just that are thick just full of quotes because whenever I hear these things, I'm like, wow, they hold so much power. You know what I mean? Words
Really
hold
do.
so much
Yeah.
power, and we don't realize that. We like dismiss words without realizing the life it can give us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we get stuck by the death that it also gives us, so it's just like we really need to recognize that words can give us power and life as it also can give us death and destruction. So it's like, where do you play with your words? Where are you receiving those words? And I think when you think about these quotes and all these quotes, oh, and I love your quotes that you gave us, they really do make us think and consider, how am I loving myself? You know what I mean? In what way am I loving other people but not in a way to show myself that I love myself? Because we can be our worst enemies.
Oh,
Oh,
definitely.
we can be our worst enemies, but we can also be our best friend. And when we take that time to be our best friend, oh, the world changes, our perspective changes, everything changes in such a way that it makes you like eager to keep going, eager for life, eager for tomorrow to see what it brings. You know what I mean? And I think that's where reinventing yourself really allows us to have that hope. You know what I mean? Because hope dies every day, but hope can live on and be reborn in such a way that, oh, anything is possible because life is truly beautiful. So why not live it? You know what I mean? Why not bask in it? So ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, go check out Lorie. I have access to her website, which has access to her books, which has access to all the great content that she has to offer the world, just so that we can continue on thinking, ladies and gentlemen, because isn't that the point? Yes, it is. It's the point to keep on thinking. So, with that being said, bye.